السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله، وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. So as you heard from the first lecture, from the speech of Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan and Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, that unity in the religion, unity is from the greatest foundations and principles that the deen of Islam came to establish. And this is why our ulama, our scholars, we have here from the speech Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions how in the Quran Allah describes the 5 messengers, the Ulul Azm, which is Nuh alayhi salam, and Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam, and Isa alayhi salam, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That he says with respect to them, شَرَعَ لَكُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا وَصَّى بِهِ نُوحًا وَالَّذِي أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ وَمَا وَصَّيْنَا بِهِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى أَنْ أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. That Allah has legislated for you of this deen that which He legislated for Nuh, and that which we inspired to you, O Muhammad, and that which we legislated for Ibrahim and Musa and Isa, that you should establish the deen and be not divided therein. Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi, he says that Allah has informed here that with which He legislated for Nuh alayhi salam, the first of the messengers, and then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last of the messengers, and then those who are in between, which is Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Musa and Isa, and these 3, along with the first 2, are the Ulul Azm. They are the greatest, most determined, most firm of all of the messengers. Ibrahim, who is Al-Khalil, and Musa, who is Al-Khalid, the one whom Allah spoke to, and Isa ibn Maryam, who is the Ruh of Allah and His Word, the Spirit of Allah and His Word. That Allah mentioned in relation to the greatest of the prophets this command, an aqimu ad-din wa la tatafarraqu fi, that you should establish the religion, meaning worship Allah alone. This is the meaning of establishing the deen. Wa la tatafarraqu fi, meaning be not divided therein. And for this reason, we see that Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah ta'ala, in his great book Al-Usool al-Sittah, after the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in fact, in perfect agreement with this ayah, after mentioning the greatest principle, which is Ikhlasul Deen Lillahi ta'ala, making worship sincerely and purely for Allah alone, the second principle he mentions is Al-Ijtima'u fi Deen, which is unity upon the deen, upon the religion. And so in light of this, Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, from their greatest objectives, from their greatest goals, after establishing the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of the people, and in the statements of the people, and in the actions of the people, their greatest goal is to unite the people around this Tawheed. And so you will see Ahlus-Sunnah the people of the Sunnah, the people of the Jama'ah, that they abide and that they act by all of those ayat in the Quran, all of those statements of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he encourages unity and the Jama'ah and absence of splitting and absence of differing. There are many ahadith in this regard. But the point that we want to come to, which Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi mentions here, is that this differing in the usool and the furu', which Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, he mentions in the second principle in Usool al-Sittah, Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi, he says that differing in the usool is something that is prohibited, and this refers to the Jahmiyyah, as he mentions here, and to the Mu'tazila, and the Qadariyah, and the Murji'ah, and all those who oppose the usool of Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And likewise in the furu', in the affairs of fiqh, when we see that there are people who ascribe to the Hanafiyyah, to the Malikiyyah, to the Shafi'iyyah, to the Hanabila, and to the Zahiriyyah, and we see that they will not abandon the statement of their Imam when there is a daleel, an evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah. So when a person takes it to this level, then this is likewise the splitting in the furu', which is prohibited in the Sharia. But as for, and this is the important point to take here from the statement of Shaykh Ahmad al-Najmi, as for when a person takes, for example, the fiqh of Abu Hanifa, or Imam Malik, or Shafi'i, or Ahmad bin Hanbal, then this is to be considered a differing in understanding. And so long as a clear text is not opposed, then these differences in understanding can be accommodated and can be accepted. And it is in light of this that we understand the various differences which occur amongst the ulama when they speak about, for example, the rules of inheritance, or in affairs pertaining to the purification, or affairs pertaining to the salah, and things of that nature. We understand them in this particular perspective. So with this understanding, we have differing in the usool and differing in the furu', which can be accommodated. And this leads us to our topic, which we're going to address from the kalam of Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, حفظه ta'ala, which is how does a Salafi, how does a Sunni, how does he interact, how does he behave, how does he treat those people who fall into one of these two groups? Either one who is upon bid'ah and dalala, misguidance from the people of innovation who are present in our times, or those people who are people of the Sunnah. They are people of the Sunnah, and they might fall into a mistake. They fall into a mistake, or they might fall into an opinion and choose an opinion in which the ulama themselves have genuinely differed because of the difference in their understandings of the various evidences they use in relation to certain matters. Why is this important for us to understand? There are numerous factors. First of all, we find that we live in locations and places, in communities where there are many Muslims. And these Muslims are from all sorts of diverse backgrounds. Take London, for example, or Birmingham, for example, or any of the major cities, and you find this even in the Muslim lands, where the people of the Sunnah are forced, by way of the circumstances, to mix with all sorts of people. With people of Hizbiyah, with people of Bid'ah, with people who have masajid and marakis and centers. And Ahlus-Sunnah don't have marakis and masajid. There are so many different scenarios and situations where these types of interactions are taking place. And so unless a person understands the principles and the guidelines which our scholars have outlined and explained, how does a Muslim, how does a Sunni Salafi behave in the likely situations, then it will be a cause of great problems. It will be a cause of the weakening of Ahlus-Sunnah. It will be a cause of splitting amongst Ahlus-Sunnah. When they start differing in these issues and they don't abide and implement the various principles which our ulama have outlined to make sure that the people of the Sunnah are distinct from the people of Bid'ah, and likewise that the people of the Sunnah do not split in issues that do not justify splitting. And so here we are leading towards two extremes. The first extreme are those who are the Mumayyi'ah, those who do not have any usool. They do not implement any usool as it relates to the people of Bid'ah and Dalala and Hizbiyah, and they have an open stance in mixing with them and cooperating with them. And on the other hand, those people who, on account of different views and opinions in matters in which differing is permissible, they expel people of the Sunnah from the Sunnah. They accuse others of Hizbiyah. And these are the Haddadiyah that we are experiencing in our times. They will take matters of Ijtihaad, they will take matters in which scholars have genuinely differed, and then they will make wala wal bara, and they will enforce the view of their leader and claim that anyone who opposes this is a Hizbi. And so these kind of issues we have to be very clear about and take these principles from the ulama who are deeply grounded in these affairs. And so Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, حفظه ta'ala, has a number of very beneficial lectures that deal with how does a Sunni make mu'amala with a Bid'i. How does he interact with the people of Hizbiyah? When, for example, they are his family members. When, for example, he is involved in trade, if he needs to do trade. When, for example, he is in a place where the people of the Sunnah are weak. So all of these issues, we have to understand them clearly. And so we'll begin first of all, this is a series of questions and answers. And so I advise that you listen carefully, because the Shaykh Ubayd, حفظه ta'ala, in his speech you will find an amazing benefit in terms of the ta'sil, laying down the foundations, learning foundations and principles which are of extreme practical benefit. The Shaykh's answers and the Shaykh's clarifications are really beneficial in this regard. So you have to pay attention to his answers and notice how he is breaking things down and classifying things, and he covers every scenario. So we begin first with the first question. The Shaykh has asked, what is the ruling ما حكم مخالطة ومجالسة أهل البدع والأهواء من الإخوان والتبليغ والحزبيين على نوعيهم المكفرون وغير المكفرين. So the question is, what is the ruling on mixing and sitting with the people of innovation and desires from the Ikhwan and the Tabligh and the Hizbiyin, whether they are the people of Takfir who make Takfir or those who do not make Takfir. So the Shaykh begins after praising Allah, sending salat and salam upon the Messenger ﷺ. He says it is obligatory upon the Sunni, yajibu ala Sunni, that he separates from the people of Bid'ah, and that he keeps away from them, and that he takes caution against them. This here is a general qa'idah. This is وَهَذِهِ هِيَ الْقَاعِدَةِ الْعَامَةِ فِي مُعَامَلَةِ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعِ. This is a general principle that we understand in dealing with the people of innovation. Whether they are those who make takfir or whether they don't make takfir, the principle is uniform for all of these people. And irrespective of whether they are ikhwanis or whether they are tablighis or whether they are sururis or other than them, this is a general principle first and foremost. Then the Shaykh says, as for advising specific individuals amongst them, the Shaykh says, this is a matter whose benefit has been experienced. This is a matter whose benefit from experience, we have witnessed that benefit can arise if we were to advise specific individuals amongst them. So in light of this, the Shaykh says, in sitting with the people of desires, the following tafsil is to be understood. So he says, number one, firstly, عدم مجالسة الجماعة المتميزة في أهل البدع وعدم مخالطتهم في مراكزهم ومنتدياتهم. So he says, now pay attention to the words that the Shaykh is using. It's very important. He says, to not sit with any jama'ah which is distinguished and apparent. from amongst the Ahlul-Bid'ah, not to sit with them and not to gather with them in their centers and in their forums and so on and so forth. What he means here is that sometimes you have a jama'ah. This jama'ah is distinguished in the sense that it has a markaz, it has a masjid, it has an open call to the people. In other words, it is very clearly distinguished. So sometimes to explain why this is important to understand, sometimes you might have a community, these people are just juhal, they might be tabligis, they might be whatever they might be, and they might have a masjid. They're not really concerned with a group, but they're just general armed people who want to do the Jum'ah and the Jama'ah, and they might accommodate you and welcome you and ask you to come and do speech or whatever. They're not calling to any particular orientation. So we're making a distinction between a Jama'ah mutamayyiza, a Jama'ah which is very clear and distinguished in we know what it is calling to. So they call speakers, they have platforms, they hold conferences, they write books, so they're very clear and open in that which they call to. So when this is the case, we do not sit with this type of jama'ah, this type of group, nor do we sit with them, nor do we mix with them, nor do we attend their gatherings. This is the first issue to be aware of. This is the first situation. The second situation is the permissibility of mixing with small numbers of people amongst them, of individual people amongst them. Because this is something the Shaykh says, that this is something from experience we know that it brings about benefit, because some of them, they benefit from the advice. That's the second point. The third point is that when these gatherings and sittings take place, in order to advise these people, then it should not be from those who are well known and figureheads of the Sunnah. Now look at the wisdom of the Shaykh in this. He is saying that when we interact with the likes of these people, it shouldn't be someone who is well known and famous for the Sunnah. Why? Because it is known that these people, when so-and-so alim or shaykh or so-and-so da'i mixes with these people, they use it to their advantage. They will say, so-and-so, he came to our center, so-and-so, we spoke to him. And what they mean by this is to gain legitimacy for themselves by using the names of people who are prominent and well known for the Sunnah. So this is from the wisdom of the Shaykh. He is saying that those who advise these people, the small groups of people, it should be someone who is someone who is not that well known and prominent in the Sunnah, so that these people don't have this opportunity to deceive the people, as he says. He says someone who is known, for example, for the Sunnah, he defends the Sunnah, he aids the Sunnah. It shouldn't be that type of person, because the Shaykh says, فَإِنَّ Ahlul-Bidah يُلَبِّسُونَ بِهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَتَكَسَّبُونَ بِهِ مِنْهُمْ وَفِي مُخَالَطَتِهِ إِيَّاهُمْ تَنْفَى الصِّبْغَةُ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ. He says that the people of innovation, they deceive the people by using this individual. The fact that this individual who is known for the Sunnah, for defending the Sunnah, they will use him, and the fact that they mix with him, interact with him, in order to gain more followers and more people. So the Shaykh says, for that reason we say that it is not permissible for that individual. However, if someone was to sit with them, أقل منه, who is less than him, ليس بمشهور, who is not well known, then there's no harm in him sitting with those people for a small period, advising them, giving them advice. He says this is something whose fruits we've experienced, we know it is of benefit, and when the truth becomes clear to them, he continues with them, otherwise he abandons them and leaves them and does not keep his company with them. So from this first answer from the Shaykh is a refutation, first of all, of the mumayyi'ah. The mumayyi'ah. Those people who, when we have clear deviance, and the scholars have made their deviation absolutely clear, and the period of advice has now ended and finished. The scholars showed patience upon them for years and years and years and years, and that period has now ended. There are some people who say and who make the excuse that we are trying to advise them still and they are listening to our advice. And this is what these people like al-Ma'rabi and al-Halabi and those people were doing when the ulama, they refuted Anan Arur, they refuted Muhammad al-Maghrawi, the Takfiri, they refuted Muhammad Hassan, the Qutbi. All of these affairs are very clear and apparent about these people, that they are defenders of Sayyid Qutb, that they are people who call to the various innovations of the Hizbiyin, Tawheedul Hakimiyyah, multiple Jama'at and so on and so forth. This is very apparent and clear. And so these people are standing in between the ulama and these Hizbiyin and saying that we are advising them, we are having patience with them, it looks like they are listening to us, it looks like they are benefiting from our speech. And this is batil, this is false. Because really, they are just using this as an excuse to continue their friendship with them and to continue friendship with the Jama'at of Hizbiyah, to receive money from them and so on and so forth, and to keep their personal friendships. This is batil, this is evil. Because what this means is that the door that the ulama had closed, you want to keep open so that there's free traffic between the Hizbis to the people of the Sunnah and the people of the Sunnah towards the Hizbis. Two-way traffic, they want to keep it open. And this is evil. And so these people do not have any usool which they abide by, and they oppose these usool that you see that the scholars of the Sunnah are explaining in terms of how do we interact and behave with them. So, this is the first question. The second question the Shaykh is asked is, do we distinguish in boycotting between a person of innovation who calls to his bid'ah, he invites others to his bid'ah, and between the one who does not call to his bid'ah, and how do we interact with both of these two groups? How do we interact with either of these two? The Shaykh says, first of all, لا شك أن التفريق بين الصنفين واجب. There is no doubt that to distinguish between these two groups is wajib. Is wajib. This statement of Shaykh Ubayd is something that is backed and agreed upon by 12, 13 centuries of scholarship of the people of the Sunnah, from the scholars of Hadith, such as Imam al-Bukhari and other than them, and Imam Ahmad and all of the ulama of al-Sunnah up until this time of ours. They distinguish between the open caller to bid'ah and the one who does not call to his bid'ah. In this is a refutation of the Haddadiyah, like Yahya al-Hajuri and his followers. Those who claim and they say that it is batil to make this distinction. It is batil to make this separation. This is what Yahya al-Hajuri says. He says, even though the majority are agreed upon this, I still say it is batil. This is his arrogance and his deviation away from the ulama. So this is a matter agreed upon by the ulama, that we distinguish between the one who comes out to the people, calls them to his bid'ah, invites them to his bid'ah, and the one who just keeps quiet, he doesn't call to it, he just goes on with his affairs, he doesn't call to it. So the Shaykh says, فَمَنْ كَانَ سَاكِتًا عَلَى بِدْعَتِهِ وَلَا يَدْعُو إِلَيْهَا وَلَا يَنْشُرُهَا فَالنَّاسُ لَا يَتَضَرَّرُونَ بِهِ. He says, as for the one who is sakit, who is silent about his bid'ah, he doesn't call to it, nor does he spread it, then the people will not be harmed by him. Rather, his harm is only for his own self. And so this person is other than the one who openly calls to his bid'ah. He affirms his bid'ah. He spreads it openly amongst the people. He announces it to the people. This is the one who deserves to be boycotted and separated and to be fought against and to be warned against. So he says, as for the first one, he is given advice with respect to his own self. You advise him, you do nasiha. And as for the second one, he is the one who is to be boycotted. Now, once this is clear, the question arises, how is this second person to be boycotted? When you have an open caller, this is a person who stands out on a stall, for example, or the one who gives lectures in the masajid or in the marakiz. He's known and he openly calls to the people that which he's upon. This Shaykh says, first of all, we see if there is any benefit to be attained in boycotting him. Such as in a situation where the people of the Sunnah are strong and the strength lies with them, then this person is to be boycotted, and there's no problem with this. He is to be warned against this, and there's no problem with this, because here the people of the Sunnah are strong and there will not be any repercussions coming back upon them. However, if the strength lies with that individual, that person, that caller, and his likes, and they have an influence upon the people and upon the general people, then this person is not to be boycotted. Rather, nor is he to be warned against openly. Now this is important because many of the people of the Sunnah, they find themselves in this situation where there are maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people. They maybe don't have a masjid, they don't have a markaz, and in their city or in their region there are the people of innovation, they are the hizbiyin, the callers. They know the general people, they know the people who run the masajid, they have acceptance in the society. So if you were to come along and start speaking about this individual, warning against him, speaking about him, writing and so on and so forth, you will find that he will use his influence. He will use his influence to harm you. And his voice is more accepted than your voice. And so the people will take his speech and they will flee from you, and you will essentially cut off your da'wah. You will cut off your da'wah from reaching the people because you haven't used wisdom. And this is in fact the point that Shaykh Muhammad bin Hadi, حفظه, he mentions in the likes of these types of situations, that you don't behave in a way that's going to basically make you cut off. Your da'wah is going to be cut off because you no longer have the trust and the ear of the people, because you behaved wrongly with those who have the control and the power in your area. So the Shaykh says that with respect to this situation where you don't have the strength, then you explain his error and his mistake. You don't mention his name, you don't refute him by name, you don't warn against him by name, but you explain to the people that this statement here is wrong, and this opinion here is wrong, and this methodology here is wrong. This is what the ulama of the Sunnah are upon, and you explain the truth to them, and you explain the mistake. Otherwise the Shaykh says that if they were to boycott him, if they were to warn from him, he will bring tribulations upon them because of his strength and his influence. He will make the Ahlul-Bidah transgress against them because they have strength against the people of the Sunnah. Then they will humiliate the people of the Sunnah and they will split the people of the Sunnah themselves. So this is the second question and answer of the Shaykh. And then the third question that the Shaykh is asked is regarding how do people, the Shaykh says, when we have a gathering and there's different sittings that take place and speech takes place which has got no connection to bid'ah. It's just about the worldly affairs. We speak about worldly affairs and what is the ruling of this type of gathering. Meaning you're sitting and there could be people of hizbiyah, people of bid'ah. You're not speaking about the deen, but there are matters of the worldly affairs that are taking place between you. What is the ruling on this type of gathering? So the Shaykh says, first of all, that in general he is speaking first of all, that it is necessary amongst the Muslims in general and people of the Sunnah specifically, that when they have any type of gathering, that it should be a gathering in which they remind each other of the affairs of Tawheed and the affairs of the Sunnah and the affairs of fiqh, so that the gathering can be a gathering of benefit, and so that the angels come and they lower their wings around this gathering, and so that the tranquility descends, that Allah sends tranquility upon them and mercy upon them. This is just a general thing. All of our gatherings should be of this nature. This is how they should be. Whether we are speaking about Muslims in general or the people of the Sunnah specifically. As for the gatherings in which the dunyawi affairs are mentioned, the Shaykh says most of the time they are not free from qeel wa qal and wastage of time, and this causes a person's heart to become hardened when the likes of these discussions take place in the gatherings. The Shaykh says it is necessary for the talibul ilm, the student of knowledge, who is wise and intelligent, that when he sits in a gathering, for example, when he sits, he comes to his family, he gives salam to his family, he welcomes his family, and then once he's addressed everybody, he sits and then he calls them to listen to some ahadith, for example, or some of the rulings, for example, and he doesn't overburden them in this. So in other words, that when he interacts with his family after the normal things, welcoming them, speaking to them, that he sits and says, listen to this hadith. Do you know the ruling of such and such? And he speaks in this manner. And likewise, when there are certain situations when the Muslims are gathered together, like for example the Shaykh says, a walima, for example, or there is an aqiqah, these are certain social situations where the Muslims get together for certain reasons. He says, likewise in these affairs, he should take an opportunity when they give salam to each other, and once they've asked each other how they are, then here again they should speak about things, about the dhikr of Allah and things which are of benefit, and he should do it in a way that shouldn't overburden the people. You don't overburden the people. And at the same time the Shaykh says that a person should be open in his heart and in his chest, meaning that in this gathering, he says, فَقَدْ يَسْمَعْ حَمْزًا وَلَمْزًا وَغَمْزًا مِنَ النَّاسِ لَكِنْ يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يُوسِعَ صَدْرَهُ حَتَّى يَكْسِبَ الْعَامَ وَالْخَاصَ. He says, sometimes in a gathering, he will see the people speaking vain speech and idle speech and fooling around, but he should have a large chest, meaning that he should be able to accommodate something of this from the people. Even though he doesn't like it, he should accommodate something of this amongst the people, because this is something that the people are always going to be involved in. But his aim is to accommodate these people so he can speak to them and advise them and give them some nasiha, because the aim is to win over these people and to admonish them and to pass on the truth to them and to admonish them. And so a person has to use some sort of wisdom in the likes of these types of gatherings, which all of us at one stage or another, it is inevitable that we are going to find ourselves in these types of situations. So then the Shaykh is asked a follow-up to this question. He said, the questioner says that we understand from this that this answer of yours is in relation to the people of bid'ah as well. The meaning, are you saying that this is also in relation to the people of bid'ah? Meaning that when we are speaking with the people of bid'ah, and it is in affairs to do with the worldly affairs. So the questioner is making clear he's understood what the Shaykh is saying. So the Shaykh replies that when a Sunni is in need of a mubtadi', when he has some need from the mubtadi', from the innovator, then there is no harm in this. There is no harm in this. However, this should not be something that happens frequently, because the people of the bid'ah, they harm others. And so, for example, he might need to be involved in a trade with this one, or he might buy something from that one, or things of that nature. And so in these affairs, the Shaykh says that there's no harm if a person sits with the people of bid'ah, and he benefits in this way, but he should not spend his time in qeel and qal. This is a mistake which is not permissible. In other words, you see many of the people, even people of the Sunnah, they might have an interaction with a person of bid'ah, and above and beyond the interaction, you will see them socializing and becoming friendly and getting involved in speech which is unnecessary. All of this goes out of the guidelines which our ulama have given, and it leads to a situation where the person of bid'ah will become harmful upon the person of the Sunnah. The Shaykh says here, al-hikmah maqlooba. Al-hikmah maqlooba. Was-siyasatu al-hasana maqlooba. He says here in these affairs, wisdom is required. And a certain method, a good method of dealing with the people, this is something that is required. Because our aim is to win over the people and explain the truth to them. He says, indeed in some of the cities, as-sunnah fiha mithlu shi'ra al-bayda fi thawr al-aswad. He says that in some places the sunnah is like a single white hair in a black ox. This is the situation of the Sunnah in certain places. A single white hair on a black ox. And so he says that bid'ah is the majority and it is widespread, and they are the people who have the strength and the power. So therefore the Sunni has to be hakim. He has to be wise, so that he wins over the people and he saves them from the hawiyah, from the misguidance, and from dalal, from misguidance. Now this statement of Shaykh Ubayd is elaborated upon further by Shaykh Zayd al-Madkhali, because he was asked the exact same question. The questioner said, ما هو الضابط في التعامل مع أهل البدع في البيع والشراء وغيره من أمور الدنيا? What is the principle in interacting with the people of bid'ah in trade, in buying and selling, and other such affairs of the world? The Shaykh says, we should know first of all, اعلم أولا أن أهل البدع على نوعين, that the people of bid'ah are of two types. A type who conceal their bid'ah. They don't openly call the people to their bid'ah. The Shaykh says this type, there is no harm upon the people of the Sunnah, that if they have a need from these types of people, that they deal with the likes of these people. And there is a second type of people, those who openly call to their bid'ah, either because they write books or because they speak on the pulpits. They are giving sermons, they are giving lectures, or they gather together, they have conferences and gatherings and so on and so forth, so that they can spread their bid'ah. The Shaykh says these types of people, their enmity and hatred to the people of the Sunnah is well known. And they spread their falsehood, and the reason why they hate the people of the Sunnah is because the people of the Sunnah expose them and warn them and refute their bid'ah, and this is why they oppose the people of the Sunnah. So this type, the Shaykh says, فَهَذَا النَّوْء وَجَبَ عَلَى أَهْلِ السُّنَّةِ حَجْرُهُمْ لِإِصْرَارِهِمْ عَلَى بِدَعِهِمْ. This type of group, it is wajib upon the people of the Sunnah to boycott them, because they persist upon their bid'ah and they do not accept the nasiha of those who give nasiha. So now the Shaykh gives the best method of conduct that a person can take in how to deal with the likes of these people. He says that when we boycott these people, it means that we don't speak with them, we don't sit with them, many of them we don't give salam to them, because this was the way of the Salaf. This is the asl, this is the foundation. However, when a person of the Sunnah needs to be involved in some sort of trade or some sort of worldly benefit, the first thing he does is to go and find a person of the Sunnah. Go and find a person of the Sunnah who can fix your car, for example, or who can do a trade with you, or who can decorate your house, for example, or whatever it might be that you have a need for. Go and find a person of the Sunnah, the Shaykh says. Because perhaps you will find what you want from this individual. He'll be able to fulfill your need and he will benefit you. And likewise, whether it's trade or whatever it might be, then this is what you should do first. If this is something he cannot find, then he should go and find a person from the people of bid'ah who do not openly call to their bid'ah. They are not open callers to their bid'ah. They don't give lectures or circles or things of this nature, but they are just general people. They are not calling to the bid'ah. Then find this type of person if you can't find a person of the Sunnah. Because these people, most of these people, the Shaykh says, hum ala fitratihim, they are upon their fitrah, they are just general people, they are following what they know to be the truth. They believe what they're upon is the truth, even though they are mistaken, but they don't call to the falsehood that they are upon. So try to find this type of person if you cannot find a person of the Sunnah. So this person will help you fulfill your need. If after all of this you cannot find a Sunni, person of the Sunnah, or someone who is from the people of bid'ah who doesn't call to his bid'ah, then only in this situation that when you are compelled to speak to those who are upon bid'ah and dalala, then only in that situation you speak to them and take from them to the extent of your need. To the extent of your need, nothing above and beyond that. And if it is appropriate for you to advise them, and there is benefit in that, then you should take the opportunity to advise them as well. And this is from Shaykh Zayd al-Madkhali, حفظه ta'ala. Likewise, we see that Shaykh Ubayd, he gives more elaboration upon this in another one of his questions. And this is when he was asked the question as follows. When the Shaykh was asked that is it permissible to make ta'amul with the hizbiyyin in the worldly affairs? In the sense that you see some people, some of the youth, they make cooperation with the hizbiyyin and they say, I'm only working with him in the affairs of the dunya. So what is the answer to this? The Shaykh says, first of all, أقول, if you are able to أن تباعدوا المبتدئة فلا تشاركوهم في أي نشاط ديني أو دنيوي فافعلوا. That if you are able to keep away from the innovators so that you don't participate with them in any of the affairs, whether affairs of the religion or whether affairs of the world, then do so if you are able. So avoid them as a general principle, the Shaykh is saying. As for the affairs of the deen, then do not cooperate with them in any form whatsoever. For example, do not cooperate with them in building masajid, nor in building schools, for example, through which they are going to spread their bid'ah, nor, for example, in printing of books. Now, if you think about these things that the Shaykh has mentioned, you will find that often there are situations which some people of the Sunnah, he might have company with some of these people, there might be Deobandis, there might be people whom he knows, and because he has a position, for example, in the council, for example, or whatever, these people come to him and say, Ya akhi, we're trying to build a masjid, we need some support and some help. This is the type of thing, or type of scenario in our situation here in these lands, where this situation might come about. And so this is not permissible to aid the people of innovation to build masajid and madaris, where they're going to spread their bid'ah and their dalala, their sufiyya, their denial of Allah's names and attributes, their opposition to the sunnah, to give them strength. No. This is not a type of cooperation that they should be given. Nor, for example, in printing books. This is another situation like we see many people might be faced with. You do a book cover for some of the hizbiyyin, you do typesetting for some of the hizbiyyin, you do proofreading for some of the hizbiyyin, even if it might be a book which in and of itself is beneficial. Because this is just a way of the hizbiyyin in gaining credibility. They'll publish a book by Ibn Taymiyyah, they'll publish a book by Ibn Baz, they'll publish a book by al-Albani rahmah ta'ala, but their aim and their intent is to grow their da'wah, to gain strength in their da'wah. And so when you participate with them, cooperate with them, then this is a type of cooperation which is not befitting and not permitted here, as the Shaykh says. As for the affairs of the world, the Shaykh says this is when you have a need from them. So if you are a person who is muhsin, he is strong and firm, and he is qawi in his aqeedah, he is strong in his aqeedah, and he is strong in the sunnah, and he is strong in warning from Ahlul-Bid'ah. This is what the Shaykh says. قويا في العقيدة الصحيحة وتحسينا قويا في السنة وتحسينا قويا في الحظر من البدع. This type of person, strong in the sunnah, strong in warning from bid'ah, strong in the aqeedah, when he needs to deal with some of those people, meaning people of bid'ah, because of a need in the worldly affairs, then he says there's nothing to prevent this, but it should only be in extent of the need, only to the extent of the need, because as the Messenger of Allah said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل, that the man is upon the deen of his companion. So let one of you look at whom he befriends and whom he befriends. So the Shaykh says this is a great, serious matter. It is a dangerous matter, because how many a man have you seen whom the affairs of the world have deviated him? Meaning that purely in the matters of the world, he's deviated and he's become an enemy of the Sunnah and its people. And because of his mixing with the people of Bid'ah and Hizbiyyah, his jealousy for the Sunnah has been killed. This is the effect of mixing with the people of Hizbiyyah without necessity. That as you mix with them, your jealousy, the jealousy in your heart for the Sunnah and its people, it slowly becomes eroded. and it becomes weak up until it dies. Then when the wala and bara has been killed off, then the other things begin to follow. The affairs that a person believes in, the methodology that a person is upon, then those start to become eroded, and eventually over time this man, after being from the sunnah, he becomes an enemy to the people of the sunnah. And this, the root to this can be the matters of the worldly affairs. From affairs that you wouldn't imagine that a person might go astray in these issues. So the Shaykh says, so therefore if you desire to mix and interact with the mubtadi' because you have a need or a worldly occupation, and it should be the case that you are the one who is dominating. You are the one who is supervising. For example, you are the one who, you might employ him, for example, because of a need. You are the one who is dictating. You are the one who is setting down the rules and so on and so forth. And, you give him the dinar and he gives you the service. Khalas, finish. Nothing after this, the Shaykh says. And don't start increasing now and having other ta'amul, having other interaction, and then gradually he starts involving you in matters of da'wah. All of this is something that is not necessary. The Shaykh says, if you or Salafis can be free of need of the likes of these people by interacting with each other, find services from each other, then this is something that we encourage you upon to do this, and which we call you to be upon this, and that you should be not in any need of the Hizbiyyin, and in fact from all of the people of Bid'ah. And then the Shaykh has another similar question in which he's asked, Kayfiyat, what is the way of ta'amul with Ahlul-Bid'ah from the affair of the deen and the dunya? So the Shaykh says, first of all, Ahlus-Sunnah have a clear balance, a mizan mustaqim, and a manhaj salim. They hate the people of Bid'ah, and they hate innovations, and they spread the sunnah, and they hate the innovators who call to their innovation. This is as a general principle that they are upon. The Shaykh brings some narrations from the Salaf. Abu Iyaad al-Sakhtiyani, he said that Abu Qilabah said to me, O Ayyub, memorize 4 things from me. Memorize 4 things from me. لا تقل في القرآن برأيك. Do not speak about the Quran with your opinion. وإياك والقدر. And beware of speaking about al-qadr, meaning disputing about al-qadr. وإذا ذكر أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأمسك. And when the companions of the Messenger of Allah are mentioned, then remain silent. وَلَا تُمَكِّنْ أَهْلَ الْأَهْوَاءِ مِنْ سَمْعِكَ. And the 4th one, do not let the people of desires gain access to your hearing, so that they put into it that which they wish. And likewise he brings the statement of Mus'ab bin Sa'ad, who said, لَا تُجَالِسْ مَفْتُونًا. Do not sit with a person who is put to trial, meaning in his deen. For indeed, you will not be except in one of 2 situations. Either he will put you to trial, so you follow him, or he will harm you before he leaves you. And so the Shaykh says that these types of narrations are well known and established from the companions and the tabi'een. It is mutawatir in warning from the people of Bid'ah and sitting with them. And he says this is why the ones who call to their Bid'ah and to their dalala, that the Salaf made a distinction between the one who calls to it and the one who remains silent. So after establishing this, the Shaykh says that when the people of the Sunnah in the past, they used to have this strength, and they used to warn from the people of Bid'ah because they used to have this strength, and they used to stand in the face of Bid'ah because of this reason. But as for when they are weak, they have no strength, they have no power, and the power lies with the people of Bid'ah, then they use wisdom. They use wisdom, and they suffice with warning from the Bid'ah itself without boycotting and speaking against the people of innovation themselves. The Shaykh says, Allah, Allah ya abna'ana, iyakum thumma iyakum. He says, by Allah, O my children, beware and beware that you oppose this methodology. You must use wisdom. So he says, for indeed your Salaf used to use harshness when only harshness would benefit. And they would have strength, and they would use gentleness when only gentleness would benefit. In other words, the Shaykh is saying that you know, be aware of these issues and look at the consequences of your actions and use the right thing in the right place. Harshness when harshness is due. Gentleness when gentleness is due. Mistakes in these types of areas are what we find being spread today in the name of Salafiyah. There are people spreading mistakes in this area in the name of Salafiyah. There are those whom we mentioned from the Mumayyi'ah, from the likes of Ali al-Halabi and al-Ma'rabi, and those who are following their way from Ibrahim al-Ruhaili and other than them, where they are making excuses for the people of bid'ah, whose bid'ah is open and apparent and clear, and the scholars have made it absolutely clear. And they are laying down principles to take a position of gentleness and accommodation with the likes of these people. And on the other hand, the Haddadiyah, who they use harshness where harshness is not even justified to begin with. An alim has an opinion on an issue, and another alim has a different opinion on this issue. You follow this alim because he has evidences which he understood in a certain way. It's a genuine issue of ijtihaad. We don't see these scholars fighting against each other or making tadleel and tabdi of each other. And then these people will come along and they will accuse you of hizbiyah and bid'ah and dalala. This is all done in the name of Salafiyah. One group brings the name of justice, we are being just, and then they fall into tamyeed, and the other group bring the claim of defending the truth and so on and so forth, and they bring this harshness in the name of defending the truth and warning from hizbiyah and bid'ah, and both of them are misguided and upon deviation. And that's why the Shaykh says, he says, by Allah, my children, beware that you oppose this methodology. Upon you is to use wisdom, because your Salaf used harshness where nothing but harshness would benefit, and they would use gentleness in a place where gentleness would be of benefit. And upon this he says, listen to the speech of Ibn Sirin, Rahimah ta'ala, and others who said, Ya Ahlus-Sunnah, O people of the Sunnah, be gentle amongst yourselves, for indeed, فَإِنَّكُمْ أَقَلُّ النَّاسِ, for indeed you are the fewest of people. If we are the fewest of people already, then these types of deviations, either to the side of extremism, harshness, or to the side of lenience, all of this is going to harm the strength and the unity and the numbers of the people of the Sunnah. At the end of this question, the Shaykh gives advice as to what it should be that a person of the Sunnah should be attending to. He says, أوصيكم بالإقبال على العلم الشرعي والعلم الشرعي هو فقه الكتاب والسنة وفق سيرة السلف الصالح وفق سيرة السلف الصالح. So he says, I advise you to attend to the Shari'i knowledge. And the Shari'i knowledge, it is gaining understanding of the book and the Sunnah upon the way of the Salaf al-Salih. And then he gives us names of books. So he says in the books of Aqidah, a person should attend to the book As-Sunnah of Abdullah bin Imam Ahmad, and As-Sunnah of Ibn Abi Asim, and As-Sunnah of Al-Khallal, and At-Tawheed, Kitab Al-Tawheed of Ibn Manda. And he mentions many other books that you are familiar with, the books of Lalaka'i, the books of Ibn Taymiyyah, the books of Ibn al-Qayyim, the books of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, Rahimahullah ta'ala, and all of the other types of books which deal with the Usool of the religion. So a Muslim should attend, a Salafi should be attending to these types of affairs. Secondly, in the books of Hadith, the 6 books of Hadith, the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and likewise the Sunan of al-Darimi and Muwatta of Imam Malik. So these are in addition to the 6 books of Hadith, Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, and so on and so forth. And a person should attend to them and reading them and understand them. Likewise in the books of Tafsir, the Tafsir of al-Tabari, the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, the Tafsir of Ibn Abi Hatim, the Tafsir of al-Baghawi, and the Tafsir of al-Qurtubi. Now the Tafsir of al-Qurtubi is beneficial in terms of the language, in terms of fiqh, and as for Aqidah, then al-Qurtubi has fallen into some of the affairs of ta'wil that a person should be aware of. But in general, the Salafi tafasir, Tafsir al-Tabari, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Tafsir Ibn Abi Hatim, and Tafsir al-Baghawi, and Tafsir al-Sa'di, rahimahullahu ta'ala. And likewise, he mentions books in the books of fiqh, Umdatul Fiqh of Ibn Qudama, Minhaj al-Salikin of Ibn Sa'di, and other than them. So the Shaykh says this is what a Salafi should be preoccupied with. This is what his time should be engaged with. In learning, reading, memorizing if possible these books, seeking the explanations of the scholars of these books, and his time should be preoccupied in the likes of these affairs. And at the same time the Shaykh says, I warn you from the books of fiqh, from the books of ideology, from the head of them, the books of Al-Ghazali, Muhammad Al-Ghazali, this Egyptian, and likewise the books of Yusuf Al-Qardawi, this Egyptian as well, and the books of Sayyid Qutb, again another Egyptian. And all of these books, or some of these books, the books of Sayyid Qutb, are filled with takfir. They are filled with takfir of Muslim societies. Likewise, his tafsir, fi Dilal al-Quran, it is filled with innovations and misguidance. And likewise the books of Al-Nadwi, Abu Hasan al-Nadwi, and the books of Al-Mawdudi, and the books of all of the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood. For indeed they cause a Muslim to be deviated from Sunnah to Bid'ah and to newly invented affairs when he turns to the likes of these books. And finally the Shaykh advises upon you is to adhere and stick to the people of ilm, the people of knowledge, those whom you know, and those whom the people know, for istiqamah upon the Sunnah, and for aiding the Sunnah and aiding its people, and defending the Sunnah and defending its people, those who are alive. So here, meaning the likes of Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, Shaykh Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali, Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, Shaykh Muhammad bin Hadi, Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi, all of the ulama, many of them that you know, that a person seeks them, adheres to them, visits to them, travels to them, listens to their cassettes, their lectures, their explanations, takes from their books if he's not able to visit them, or their cassettes if he's not able to visit them. And likewise those who have passed away, who have left behind them beneficial books which they left in the matters of the Sunnah. So this is another statement of the Shaykh, and we finish with one more inshallah ta'ala from Shaykh Ubayd to conclude this lesson. And this lesson is when a Salafi has relatives who are people of bid'ah. And this again is something that many of us, we find ourselves in this situation. When a Salafi has relatives who are people of innovation, such as this person might be a brother to him, or an uncle to him, or what is similar to this. So how does a Salafi behave with the likes of these people? The Shaykh says, هَذَا مَوْجُودٌ وَلَا شَكْ. No doubt this is found. And he says, فَإِنَّ الْكَثِيرِ مِنَ الْبُيُوتِ تَجِدَ السُّنِّي السَّلَفِ وَاحِدًا رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا أو امرأة واحدة وَالْبَقِيَّ كُلُّهُمْ أَهْلُ بِدْعَةٍ. He says, you will find that there will be in one house, there will be a Sunni, a Salafi, a single man or a single woman, a single sister, and all of the rest are people of bid'ah. And this is true. You'll find households, one Salafi, and then you have the uncle is a Sufi, the brother is a Hizb al-Tahrir, the other one is Jama'at al-Tabligh, and the other one's a Takfiri. This is no joke. There are people that you find households which are like this. And this is not surprising, because we see even in the 2nd century of Islam, you see many of the Salaf, they found themselves in this same situation. Yusuf bin Asbat and others, you find there are statements that they make, that my father was a Qadari, my uncles were Rawafid, Shia were Rawafid, and then Allah saved me by way of Sufyan. In a single household. So it's not surprising that in the 20th century, we will find a household, one Salafi or no Salafi, and this one's a Sufi with Hamza Yusuf, this one is into Abu Qatada, this one's into Anjum Chaudhry, this one is into this, because all of the means of the communication, a person can listen to whatever they want and whatever they please. And so whatever appeals to their nafs, they will follow in that path. So this one becomes a Sufi, this one's a Takfiri, this one's an Ikhwani, and they're all living in the same house. And strangely enough, they will all cooperate with each other, and they will oppose the single Salafi who's in that household. They will forget all the differences and they will oppose and fight against the one poor miskin Salafi who's in that household. So the Shaykh says, this no doubt is found. And he says, فَهَذَا لَا بُدَّ أَن تَكُونَ سِيَاسَتُهُ حَسَنَةً. He says, this type of person, it is necessary for him to have a good siyasa. Siyasa meaning here that he has a way in dealing with the people of his household. He has policies and ways of how to deal with wisdom with his household. This is important what the Shaykh is mentioning, because often many people come to us and they ring and say, Ya Akhi, I've got a situation in my family, my sister is this, or my brother is this, he's with Tabligh and whatever, and we had a bust-up and we had a fight, and we fell out and did whatever, and now we don't speak and whatever. All of this is because a person is not really following the advice of the ulama and not using wisdom. The situation shouldn't have reached that situation. So anyway, the Shaykh says that this person, فَهَذَا لَا بُدْ أَن تَكُونَ سِيَاسَتُهُ حَسَنَةً. This person, he must have a siyasa which is good, a way of dealing which is good, and let him become endeared to his family. Let him develop love with his family, because at the end of the day, this is his family. It is his blood relatives. So let him وَيَتَحَبَّبْ إِلَيْهِمْ. Let him become endeared to them, bring about love between them, and let him bring goodness out from them, and let him explain the truth to them with love, with mahabba, and with purity, with safa and mahabba, and let him not revolt against them like the revolt of a lion. Now pay attention to what the Shaykh has said. Many people you will see, from their zeal for the sunnah and for their love of Salafiyya and for their love of the ulama, you will see them turning like a lion, ready to pounce on members of their family. It could be their sister, could be their brother, could be the father, could be the mother, could be the uncle, and they're ready to pounce like a lion. This type of situation is not the way that a Sunni Salafi, it's not the way that he uses. Look at the advice of the Shaykh. He says, let him advise them with love, and let him not revolt against them like a lion, like a lion who pounces, and let him not make apparent to them that they are misguided, that they are upon misguidance and only he's upon the truth. Look at all of this. This is wisdom from the Shaykh that he's given. Don't give the impression that, you're misguided, and only I'm upon the truth. A person shouldn't speak in a way in which he gives that impression to his family members. Rather, he should, with love and sincerity and for seeking goodness for them, try to explain the truth for them, be humble, because they are his blood relatives, and of all the people, they are the most deserving of good companionship and, intending of good for them. So the Shaykh says, let him not make apparent أو يظهر لهم أنهم ضلال وأنه هو على الحق والهدى, that all of you are misguided and only I'm upon the truth. He shouldn't give them that impression. Then he says, however, he should use this opportunity of being close and being a relative to them, that he should, advise them with wisdom until Allah guides them upon him. وَعَلَيْهِ الصَّبْرُ وَالْإِحْتِسَابُ. He should be patient, be accommodating. وَلَا يَسْتَعْجِلْ مَا دَامَتَ الْبِدْعَةِ مُفَسِّقَةً. So long as this bid'ah is something that does not take outside the fold of Islam, then let him have patience and let him not be hasty. Upon him is to have patience. عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَصْبِرْ وَيَحْتَسِبْ وَيَجْتَهِدْ. That he strives, has patience, and that he calls upon Allah with dua. He asks Allah to guide them and to guide them to the sunnah. And he says, people from our experience, we know that whether they are scholars or whether they are common people, if you speak to them with wisdom and with a good siyasa, then they will benefit from this. We know from experience that this is the case. And as for the one who is a mu'anid, the one who is a willful, stubborn opposer, then this person, strength can be used and can be used against this person. But in general, the Shaykh is saying that this is how we behave with members of the family. So this is all that we have time for in this lesson today. These are just some general guidelines that we find that they are practical guidelines. We often find ourselves in these situations. And so they are very important for us to adhere to them, as the Shaykh says, because otherwise it will lead to the great deviation and harm upon the people of the Sunnah. So this concludes our lesson for today. Tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, we will look at some speech of Shaykh Ubayd in how do we deal with the opposer from within Ahlus-Sunnati wal Jama'ah. The opposer from within Ahlus-Sunnah. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. In yesterday's lesson, we took some benefits from the speech of Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, حفظه ta'ala, regarding how does a Sunni Salafi, how does he interact with the people of Bid'ah. And we established that there's the general principle that we know from the Salaf, which is established, that we keep away from them, we boycott them, we revile them, refute them. This is the general position which is established towards Ahlul-Bid'ah as a whole. But there are many situations and circumstances that can be present with pockets of people of the Sunnah who are in different lands, in different places. And they might be weak or they might be strong. They might have friends, family, relatives who are from the people of Hizbiyah, people of innovation. So how does a person interact and behave in a way which protects them, keeps them united, keeps them strong, but also makes sure that they are able to benefit the people who are around them without receiving harm and without cutting off from those people in a way which is harmful to them and to them. So we took some benefit from the kalam of Shaykh Ubayd in relation to those types of issues. And in today's lesson, we want to complete the discussion in dealing with the mistakes from Ahlus-Sunnah. So yesterday we dealt with the people of Bid'ah, because those who can make mistakes are of two types: those who differ in Usool, in the foundations, and those from Ahlus-Sunnah who can make mistakes and fall into mistakes. So to deal with that topic today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to read two sections. The first is from Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book As-Sawa'iq al-Mursalah. And he is quoting from al-Mudhafar as-Sam'ani, rahimahullah ta'ala. And this really is an amazing passage from al-Mudhafar. I won't have time to read through the whole thing, but maybe half of it, because there is something in the speech of al-Mudhafar that lays the foundation to move on to the speech from Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, hafidhahullah ta'ala, in which he will give us the ta'sil, the foundations, the principles as to how we behave and interact when it comes to the mistakes of the people of the Sunnah, the scholars of the people of the Sunnah, the students of the people of the Sunnah. So this is the layout of the lesson, inshallah ta'ala. So the kalam of al-Mudhafar, this is quoted by Ibn al-Qayyim in his book As-Sawa'iq al-Mursalah. And so he says, he begins by saying, كل فريق من المبتدئة يعتقد أن ما يقوله هو الحق. That every faction from the people of innovation, they believe that what they are saying is the truth, that what they're upon is the truth. الذي كان عليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصحابه. So every faction believes and claims that we are upon the truth that the Messenger and his companions were upon. And he says, لأن كلهم يدعون شريعة الإسلام ملتزمون في الظاهر شعارها. All of them claim attachment to the Sharia of Islam, and outwardly we see them attached to the symbols of Islam. So we see them praying the Jum'ah, the Jama'ah, wearing the dress, and all the different apparent signs that you would see from a person that you can say that this person is here adhering to the Sharia, because this is what we see from them. And Obviously they all believe, يَرَوْنَ أَنَّ مَا جَاءَ بِهِ مُحَمَّدْ هُوَ الْحَقِّ. They believe that what Muhammad came with is the truth. However, he says that amongst them, غَيْرْ أَنَّ الطُّرُقْ تَفَرَّقَتْ بِهِمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ وَأَحْدَثُوا فِي الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. So despite all of this outward appearance and attachment to the Sunnah and the Sharia, we see that amongst them all, there are many different paths which have split them all into different factions. And this is because after the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ, they put affairs into the religion which neither Allah nor the Messenger gave any authority or permission for. Then he says, فَزَعَمَ كُلُّ فَرِيقٍ أَنَّهُ هُوَ الْمُتَمَسِّكِ بشريعة الإسلام وأن الحق الذي قام به رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الذي يعتقده وينتحله. So then after this, every individual faction from all these factions, they believe that they are the ones who are adhering to the Sharia of Islam. And that the truth that the Messenger came with, that is what he believes and what he is upon. غير أن الله تعالى أبى أن يكون الحق والعقيدة الصحيحة إلا مع أهل الحديث والآثار. However, Allah the Most High, He refused except that the truth and the sound creed should be with the people of hadith and athar. Why? He explains, لأنهم أخذوا دينهم وعقائدهم خلفا عن السلف وقرنا عن قرن إلى أن انتهوا إلى التابعين وأخذه التابعون عن أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأخذه الصحابة عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So why is it that these people of hadith and athar are upon the truth? It is because they took their deen and their beliefs generation after generation from the Salaf and century after century up until they arrive back to the Tabi'een. And then the Tabi'een, they took it from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And the companions, they took it from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So here we have a clear tracing back to where the origin of their belief and their deen comes from. And then he says, وَلَا طَرِيقَ إِلَى مَعْرِفَةِ مَا دَعَى إِلَيْهِ الرَّسُولُ صلى الله عليه وسلم النَّاسَ من الدين المستقيم والصراط القويم إلا هذا الطريق الذي سلكه أصحاب الحديث. And then he says there is no way to know what the Messenger called to, what he called the people to, of the upright religion and the straight path, except by this path which the people of hadith have traversed upon. وأما سائر الفرق فطلبوا الدين بغير طريقه لأنهم رجعوا إلى معقولهم وخواطرهم وآرائهم. He says, as for all of the different groups and sects, they sought the deen, they sought the religion from other than its proper route. So the proper route, as he established, is we go back generation after generation, we have a clear link back to the Tabi'een, the Sahaba and the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is clear and wadih from the people of hadith. It's very clear from what they are upon that you can see this from them. As for all of the other groups, he says, they sought the religion from other than its proper path because they returned to what they understood with their intellects and what ideas came to their minds and what opinions they professed. فَإِذَا سَمِعُوا شَيْئًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ عَرَضُوهُ عَلَى مِعْيَارِ عُقُولِهِمْ فَإِنِ اسْتَقَامَ لَهُمْ قَبِلُوهُ وَإِن لَّمْ يَسْتَقِمْ فِي مِيزَانِ عُقُولِهِمْ رَدُّوهُ. He says, so then when they hear something from the Kitab and the Sunnah, they subject it to the criterion, the scales of their intellects. And if it stands up to what their intellects consider, then they will accept it. And if it does not stand up in their balance, in their scales of the intellects, they will reject it. However, if they are forced to accept this matter, if they are forced, فَإِنِ اضْطَرُّوا إِلَى قُبُولِهِ, if there's no other way to deny it, then they are forced into making ta'wil. حَرَّفُوهُ بِالتَّأْوِيلَاتِ الْبَعِيدَةِ وَالْمَعَانِ الْمُسْتَقْرَحَةِ. Then they begin to make ta'wil of these texts and they bring meanings which are dislikable فحادوا عن الحق وزاغوا عنه ونبذوا الدين وراء ظهورهم وجعلوا السنة تحت أقدامهم. So the result of this is that they threw the religion behind their backs and they put the sunnah beneath their feet. This is the end result of their action when they took the deen from their intellects, their ideas in their minds, and their opinions. Now, in contrast to these people, وَأَمَّا أَهْلُ السُّنَّةِ فَجَعَلُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالسُّنَّةَ أَمَامَهُمْ وَطَلَبُوا الدِّينَ مِنْ قِبَلِهَا. As for the people of the Sunnah, they put the Kitab and the Sunnah in front of them. And they sought the religion from these two things. وَمَا وَقَعَ لَهُم مِّن مَعْقُولِهِمْ وَخَوَاطِرِهِمْ وَآرَائِهِمْ عَرَضُوهُ عَلَى الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ. And if any idea comes to their mind, any opinion, any reasoning, any thought, any idea, they subject it to the Kitab and the Sunnah. So if they find it, فَإِن وَجَدُوهُ مُوَافِقًا لَهُمَا قَبِلُوهُ وَشَكَرُوا اللَّهَ تَعَالَى حَيْثُ أَرَاهُمْ ذَلِكَ وَوَفَّقَهُمْ لَهُ. So if they found it to be in agreement with them both, they accept it and they make shukr to Allah. They are grateful to Allah in that He showed them that truth. He showed them that and He gave them success in it. وَإِن وَجَدُوهُ مُخَالِفًا لَهُمَا تَرَكُوا مَا وَقَعَ لَهُمْ وَأَقْبَلُوا عَلَى الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ وَرَجَعُوا بِالتُّهْمَةِ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ. And if they found what they believed or the idea they had or the thought or the opinion opposed the book and the Sunnah, then they rejected it, abandoned it, and they turned to the book and the Sunnah, and they suspected their own selves. They made the tuhma upon their own selves, that there's something wrong with me, not the Kitab and the Sunnah. فَإِنَّ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ لَا يَهْدِيَانِ إِلَّا إِلَى الْحَقِّ وَرَأْيُ الْإِنسَانِ قَدْ يَكُونُ حَقًّا وَقَدْ يَكُونُ بَاطِلًا. هذا معنى قول أبي سليمان الداراني وهو أوحد أهل زمانه في المعرفة. He says, the book and the Sunnah only guide to the truth. And the opinion of an individual can sometimes be true and it can sometimes be false. This is the meaning of the statement of Abi Sulaiman al-Darani, who is the unique person of his time in knowledge. Then he quotes the statement from Abu Sulaiman al-Darani, which is, ما حدثتني نفسي بشيء إلا طلبت عليه شاهدين من الكتاب والسنة فإن أتى بهما وإلا رددته. He says, my soul never spoke to me about anything, nothing occurred in my soul, anything, except that I requested from it two witnesses from the Quran and from the Sunnah. So if it came with them both, then I would accept it, otherwise I would reject it. So now this is the way of the people of Hadith, the people of the Sunnah, this is their way. Then he brings that statement, that famous statement which you are familiar with, inshallah ta'ala. He says, وَمِمَّا يَدُلُّ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْحَدِيثِ عَلَى الْحَقِّ أَنَّكَ لَوْ طَالَعْتَ جَمِيعَ كُتُبِهِمْ الْمُصَنَّفَةِ من أولها إلى آخرها قديمها وحديثها وجدتها مع اختلاف بلدانهم وزمانهم وتباعد ما بينهم في الديار وسكون كل واحد منهم قطرا من الأقطار في باب الاعتقاد على وتيرة واحدة ونمط واحد. He says from the evidence which indicates that the people of Hadith are the people of truth is that if you were to go and look at all of their books that are written from the very beginning to the very end, from the very old of them to the very recent of them, you would find that despite the fact that they live in different places and they live in different times, and the fact that there is such distance between them in the lands they live in, and that each of them lives in a different region amongst the regions, you will find that in the field of i'tiqad, in the belief, they are upon a single way and a single path. يَجْرُونَ فِيهِ عَلَى طَرِيقَةٍ لَا يَحِيدُونَ عَنْهَا لَا يَمِيلُونَ فِيهَا. That you see them proceeding upon a path, they never deviate or swerve away from it. قلوبهم في ذلك على قلب واحد ونقلهم واحد. Their hearts as if they are a single heart. And when they narrate and they transmit, it seems as if this transmission is just a single transmission. It's so many people transmitting the same thing. And then he says, لا ترى فيه اختلافا ولا تفرقا في شيء ما وإن قل. He says, you will not see any difference therein, even if it is small. بل لو جمعت جميع ما جرى على ألسنتهم ونقلوه عن سلفهم وجدته كأنه جاء من قلب واحد وجرى على لسان واحد. He says, rather, if you were to look at everything that they speak on their tongues and which they narrate from those who came before them, you would find that it is as if it is all from the heart of a single man. And it is as if it proceeds from the tongue of a single man. And in fact, what he said is correct, because in reality, it all comes from the heart of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the tongue of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So no doubt this is the truth, what he has mentioned. And then he says, وَهَلْ عَلَى الْحَقِّ دَلِيلٌ أَبْيَنُ مِنْ هَذَا. Is there any evidence, any evidence for the truth more clear than this? Then he brings the ayah in the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Do they not reflect over the Quran? Had it been from other than Allah, they would have found much variation and discrepancy therein. And he brings the ayah likewise, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Hold fast to the rope of Allah, all of you together. Do not be divided. Do not split. And remember the favor of Allah upon you when you were enemies, and He brought together your hearts, and you became, by way of His favor, as brothers. So all of this is a quality that you see in the people of the Sunnah, the people of Hadith, the people of Athar. Why? Because the route through which they took their deen is very clear and apparent, and it traces back all the way to the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَأَمَّا إِذَا نَظَرْتَ إِلَى أَهْلِ الْبِدَعِ رَأَيْتَهُمْ مُتَفَرِّقِينَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ شِيَعًا وَأَحْزَابًا. As for when you look at the people of bid'ah, you will see them split, divided, factions, parties, groups. لا تكاد تجد اثنين منهم على طريقة واحدة في الاعتقاد. You would hardly find amongst them a person who is people who are upon the same way in belief. يبدئ بعضهم بعضا بل يرتقون إلى التكفير. They will make tabdi' of each other, and some of them will even make takfir of each other. You will see al-ibn, the son, يكفر الابن أباه والرجل أخاه والجار جاره. You will see the son making takfir of his father, saying his father is a kafir. You will see a man declaring his brother to be a kafir, and the neighbor declaring his neighbor to be a kafir. This is amongst the people of bid'ah. He says, وَتَرَاهُمْ, you will see them constantly always in dispute, enmity, hatred, separation, and their whole lives are spent, yet their word is never united, yet their word is never one. Then he brings the ayah in the Quran, تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. You consider them to be one, but their hearts are diverse and in different directions. This is because they are a people who do not understand. Then he says, have you not heard how the Mu'tazila, you see them, they are gathered upon this way that they're upon. Those from Baghdad, they make takfir from those who are from Basra. This is because historically the Mu'tazila, they split into two. There was the Baghdadi school of thought and the Basri school of thought. And they differed in some of the issues of the attributes and some issues. So one group made takfir of the other group, and that group made takfir of this group. And he says, and some of the people of Abu Ali al-Jubai, some of the companions, they made takfir of his son, Abu Hashim and his companions. And Abu Hashim and his companions, they made takfir of Abu Ali and his companions. This is how it is with the people of bid'ah. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ سَائِرُ رُؤُوسِهِمْ وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَقَالَاتِ مِنْهُمْ إِذَا تَدَبَّرْتَ أَقْوَالَهُمْ رَأَيْتَهُمْ مُتَفَرِّقِينَ يُكَفِّرُ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. He says, this is the same thing you see amongst all of these people of the very statements. When you reflect upon their statements, you see them split, divided, making takfir of each other. وَكَذَلِكَ الْخَوَارِجِ وَالرَّوَافِدِ. Likewise, the Khawarij and the Rafid are between them and all of the innovators. In fact, he says, وَهَلْ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ أَظْهَرُ مِنْ هَذَا. So is there any evidence more clear than this that they are upon batil? That they are upon batil. قال الله تعالى إن الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا لست منهم في شيء إنما أمرهم إلى الله فبرأ الله رسوله من هذا التفرق والاختلاف. He brings the ayah, indeed those who split their religion into sects and become sects, you have nothing to do with them, meaning O Muhammad. Indeed their affair is with Allah. So Allah here has freed his messenger from this tafarruq and this ikhtilaf. And then he says, he explains the reason why the people of hadith are agreed and united is because they took their deen from the kitab and the sunnah and through the path of transmission, through transmission. And so therefore this forced them and made them to inherit al-ittifaq wal-i'tilaf. Meaning, why is it that we are united? It is because our deen has come purely by way of transmission, naql. The naql is authentic, we believe it and we accept it. There's nothing left after that. There's no aql, there's no opinion, there's no idea, there's no hawa, there's nothing. And so therefore it forces a person who takes in his deen in this way, his heart to be united with everyone else who takes his deen in that way as well. وَأَهْلُ-Bidah أَخَذُوا الدِّينَ عَنْ عُقُولِهِمْ فَأَوْرَثَهُمُ التَّفَرُّقُ وَالْإِخْتِلَافِ. As for Ahlul-Bid'ah, they took their deen from their uqul, from their intellects, so it forced them and made them to inherit at-tafarruq wal-ikhtilaf. And if you look in history, you will find the truthfulness of this statement. You will see the Khawarij, how they split into so many different groups. You will see the Qadariyah amongst them are not upon a united word. Amongst them are those who deny the ilm of Allah. Amongst them are those who affirm the ilm but deny the mashi'ah and the khalq of Allah. You look at the Murji'ah, amongst them are the extremists. Statement is not from Iman. Amongst them are the ones who say belief in speech. Amongst them are those, the various factions amongst them. You look at the Ahlul Kalam, the people of Kalam, Ilmul Kalam. The Jahmiyyah make takfir of the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila make takfir of the Ash'aris. The Ash'aris make takfir in batil, upon falsehood, of others whom they accuse of tajseem. All of these Ahlul Kalam, they are various opinions and confused, and they are not united upon a single way. Why? The proof is we can deduce backwards that because there is disunity, they never took the deen through naql, rather they took it through aql and ra'i and hawa. This is a connection that we can make based upon this fact that al-Mudhafar as-Sam'ani is mentioning to us. He says, فَإِنَّ النَّقْلَ وَالرِّوَايَةِ مِنَ الثِّقَاتِ وَالْمُتْقِنِينَ قَلَّمَا تَخْتَلِفُ. This is because the naql, the narrations that come through the trustworthy and the precise people, very rarely do they vary and differ. And if there's a variation in a word or an expression, this is a type of differing that doesn't really bother. It doesn't harm the religion. There's no revilement to be made upon these differences and variations in what they say, because this is just a variation in expressing the same meaning. It's not a variation in reality. He says, this does not harm the religion. As for the ma'qulat, things that people understand with their intellects, the ideas, the thoughts, opinions, very rarely do they agree. Rather, every person's intellect makes him to see something that the intellect of another person doesn't make him see. This is the nature of what they're upon. Now, all of this introduction actually leads us to the actual statement which is relevant to our lecture today. So all of this was leading up to the actual statement. So now, after establishing all of this, he says, وَبِهَذَا يَظْهُرْ مُفَارَقَةُ الْإِخْتِلَافِ فِي مَسَائِلِ الْفُرُوعِ اختلاف العقائد في الأصول. He says, from all of this, the difference between the fact that the issues in the masail of the furu', meaning those issues in which the scholars, they make ijtihaad in relation to the ahkam, for example, and issues in which there is no text where they make ijtihaad, all of these types of things, they are different to the differing in the usool. He says, فَإِنَّا وَجَدْنَا أَصْحَابَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم وَرَضِيَ عَنْهُمْ اختلفوا بعده في أحكام الدين فَلَمْ يَتَفَرَّقُوا وَلَمْ يَصِيرُوا شِيَعًا. We see that the Sahaba after the Messenger Muhammad sallam, they've differed in some of the rulings of the religion, but they did not split, nor did they become parties or factions. Why? Because they did not separate from the religion. Rather, they looked into what the religion permits a person to look into, meaning of the affairs of the ahkam and so on and so forth. And so therefore their statements, their opinions, they differed in many different issues. Then he gives some examples in the issue of inheritance. In the issue of inheritance, we see there was differences amongst them regarding the grandfather, and likewise children who are from the same mother but different fathers, and likewise mothers who have children from different fathers. These types of categories, we see that the Sahaba, they differed about these categories in relation to inheritance and other such issues. فَصَارُوا بِإِخْتِلَافِهِمْ فِي هَذِهِ الْأَشْيَاءِ مَحْمُودِينَ وَكَانَ هَذَا النَّوْعُ مِنَ الْإِخْتِلَافِ رَحْمَةٌ لَهُمْ لِهَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ حَيْثُ أَيَّدَهُمْ بِالتَّوْفِيقِ وَالْيَقِينِ. He says that this difference that they fell into in these kind of things was something that despite that they were still praised. They are still praiseworthy. And this type of ikhtilaf is a mercy for this ummah in the sense that Allah, He granted them success and certainty. Then he says, now he speaks specifically about ijtihaad in matters in which there is no text. So the example he's just given now are issues in which the scholars have genuinely differed in their understanding of the evidences. Now he's saying, then the scholars, they expanded their vision by looking into things into which they found no ruling in the revelation or the sunnah. وَكَانُوا مَعَ هَذَا الْإِخْتِلَافِ أَهْلَ مُوَدَّةٍ وَنُصْحٍ. And so despite them varying in these issues, they were still people of love and people of mutual advice. وَبَقِيَتْ بَيْنَهُمْ أُخُوَّةُ الْإِسْلَامِ. And the brotherhood of Islam remained amongst them. وَلَمْ يَنْقَطِعْ عَنْهُمْ نِظَامُ الْأُلْفَةِ. And that ulfa, that togetherness and friendship and love that was arranged between them, that was not cut off. So then he says, however, this was in the time of the Sahaba. This is how it was. He says, then when these desires appeared, those whose people were calling the people to the hellfire, and they became parties and sects, then the brotherhood became split and separated in the religion. Right, so in other words, he's telling us how it was amongst the Sahaba. They made ijtihaad in the matters of the religion, some of which there were texts, but because of different understandings, they arrived at different rulings. And in some issues, there was no text. They made ijtihaad, and their opinions differed. Alongside all of that, they had love, unity, brotherhood. There was no splits amongst them. Then when the bid'ah, when the innovations appeared, and people turned into parties and sects and factions, then this brotherhood and unity and love, it fell. And this occurred because newly invented matters were invented into the religion, and shaitan threw these things on the statements of the people in order to make them differ and separate and split and accuse each other of kufr and so on and so forth. Then he comes and he says, every issue which arose in Islam, فَكُلُّ مَسْأَلَةٍ حَدَثَتْ فِي الْإِسْلام فَخَاضَ فِيهَا النَّاسِ وَاخْتَلَفُوا وَلَمْ يُورِثْ هَذَا الْإِخْتِلَافِ بَيْنَهُمْ عَدَاوَةً وَلَا بُغْضًا وَلَا تَفَرُّقًا بَلْ بَقِيَتْ بَيْنَهُمُ الْأُلْفَةُ والنصيحة والمودة والرحمة والشفقة علمنا أن ذلك من مسائل الإسلام يجوز النظر فيها والأخذ بالقول. And then he says, so what he says here is that every issue that we look at which is new in Islam, and then we see the people delve into it, and we see them having different views, but it does not force them to have enmity and hatred and separation. Rather, despite their different opinions, there remains amongst them advice, love, mercy, compassion. He says, then we know that this issue is a genuine issue from Islam. Right? So we're looking at issues. When we see them differing, but there's no hatred and enmity, we know that this issue is a genuine issue from Islam. And then he says, these are statements that do not necessitate tabdi' nor takfir. And these are the issues we found amongst the Sahaba. Amongst them there was love, mercy, and so on and so forth. This is how it was. Then he says, every issue which occurred and then the people differed therein, and then it led to abandonment, turning away, cutting off, splitting, and even leading to takfir, then you know that that issue is not from the affairs of the religion. Rather, it is upon everyone to avoid that issue and turn away from it. And indeed, he said that Allah Ta'ala, He made it as a condition that when we hold to Islam, that we remain brothers upon that. Now pay attention to how he's using this evidence. In this ayah, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِهِ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. He's saying that from the condition of adhering to Islam is that we remain brothers in those types of issues. And he used this ayah as a proof for that. And then so this is the end of what he says. The reason why we wanted to mention this, the statement of Abu-al-Mudhafar as-Sam'ani, is because in the statement of Abu-al-Mudhafar as-Sam'ani in fact there's more to it than this, because he deals with issues about Usool. The next part that comes, it's too long to go into for the lesson, but he says, if someone comes and says that, you people, why do you call yourselves the people of the Sunnah? And, talking about al-Qadr and the attributes and Iman is something that brings enmity and hatred. We shouldn't speak about these issues. In other words, there are doubts that he's bringing which are the exact same doubts you will find today from the Mumayyi'ah and the Haddadiyah. If I was to read the whole passage, I don't have time for it, but basically the doubts are being brought and he's refuting those doubts. And this is one of the amazing things about the people of Sunnah and Hadith and Athar, is that you will find that no doubt appears in any age, any time, any era. No bid'ah appears, no misconception appears, no argument appears, no matter what time it is in, except that you will find from the Imams of the Sunnah, in whatever age it might be, speech which if you were to read that speech, you would think it was not written or stated except to refute that bid'ah or that shubha or that whatever it is that you find present in whatever age it might come. And so here in the kalam of Abu al-Mudhafar, there is a refutation of the people of Tamyi', those who justify differing in the usool, and we shouldn't speak about usool because it brings hatred and enmity, and we've been commanded with unity, and so on and so forth. We find this here in the speech of Abu al-Mudhafar as-Sam'ani. And this is the 6th century after Islam. And likewise, those who take the issues of furu' and the ahkam and the matters of ijtihaad, like the Haddadiyah, the followers of al-Hajur and their likes, and they make wala, wal-bara, enmity, hatred, splitting, and so on and so forth. This is the very, very same thing that Abu al-Mudhafar is speaking of in this ayah, and he's saying it is a condition of adhering to Islam that we remain brothers alongside these issues. And he quoted that ayah in Surah Ali Imran. And there's more to this. This is a really beautiful passage, inshallah ta'ala, that you can refer to through as-Sawa'iq al-Mursala. But this now leads us to the main part of the lesson. This was laying the foundations. Now we come to the ta'sil. Now we come to Shaykh Ubayd, who is going to lay down for us the foundations. How do we now deal in these types of issues, mistakes which are made, issues of ijtihaad, issues in which there is no text? How do we behave in these issues? So the question to the Shaykh is, أحسن الله إليكم يقول السائل حفظكم الله ما قولكم فيما يجري من خلاف بين السلفيين هذه الأيام وما موقف السلف منها. What is your saying regarding what is occurring of differing between the Salafis in these days? And what is the position of the Salaf towards the likes of these issues? He says, indeed the Salaf. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to translate inshallah ta'ala for the sake of the shortage of time. So he says, indeed the Salaf of Ahlus-Sunnah, the Salaf who came first from Ahlus-Sunnah, and the Khalaf of them, those who came after them, when they speak, they do not make general, ambiguous, unrestricted words. Nor do they launch into an attack upon people. This is not how they behave. They don't speak with general, ambiguous, unqualified speech, nor do they just launch into attacks against people. Rather, he says, بَلْ هُمْ مُنْضَبِطُونَ بِمِيزَانِ الشَّرْعِ. Rather, they are precise and exact using the scales of the Sharia. This is how a Salafi, this is how he is. Right? Doesn't speak in ambiguous, general, unqualified, absolute, statements, nor does he just rush into attacking. Rather, he is governed and he is made precise by the scales of the Sharia. So, by the scales of the Sharia, they look at two things. First of all, this differing which has appeared and arose, what type is it? What is it? What is the mukhalafa? And secondly, they look at the mukhalif, the one who made the mistake. So two things. We look at the mistake and we look at the person making the mistake. So he says, as for the mistakes which are made, all the mistakes which take place in the world, by everybody, he says all of the mistakes, they are of two types. There are two types of mistakes that can take place. The first of them is that in which ijtihaad is permissible. In which ijtihaad is permissible. This is in the rulings, the ahkam, the affairs of wudu, the affairs of salah, the affairs of fasting, the affairs of marriage, divorce, and so on. So all these issues, inheritance, he says this is in the ahkam. So every scholar, he looks at the evidences, and every party will have evidences from the Sharia that permits him and justifies him in holding the view that he's holding. So here, one does not make any blame upon the other one. And we see that amongst the Salafis, they have a share of this. You see, amongst the Salafis, they have this type of differing and they have this type of variation. Even the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, we see that they used to hold these views and none of them used to attack and, speak about the others and to launch, like a harb, like a war against the other one and begin to make wala and bara in these kind of issues. He says, however, any person, if there was to be found a person like this, the Shaykh says, any person who begins to make wala and bara, shows enmity and hatred on an issue, and then he launches a war against other people on an issue in which that person is justified in holding his madhab. He says this is sufficient to take him outside the fold of Ahlus-Sunnah into amongst the Mubtadi'ah. The Mubtadi'ah. He says, because we know that many instances in which the people of the Sunnah in the past, they differed in issues, and one of them never blamed or censored the other one. So he says, I will give you two examples. One example is an issue to do from the branches of belief, and one of them is to do with the branches of fiqh. So then the Shaykh goes on to give a number of examples, but take note of the point that the Shaykh just mentioned here. He said that any person who takes an issue in which holding an opinion, a madhab, is permitted by the evidences, and he now makes wala, wal, bara, enmity, loyalty, and then this person is sufficient for him to be taken outside of Ahlus-Sunnah. This, ya ikhwan, is what we see the Hajawira, what they are upon, the followers of al-Hajuri. An opinion that al-Hajuri holds, you cannot oppose that opinion. The ulama, they have their opinions like Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh al-Fawzan, that you can collect for masajid, that you can have collection boxes out the masajid. There are views like this amongst the ulama. They make ijtihaad in these issues. You cannot oppose al-Hajuri, otherwise you are hizbi. You cannot oppose al-Hajuri, otherwise you are guilty of hizbiyah. In issues in which the ulama have actually genuinely differed. Ibn Baz, he says that although I don't agree with the use of videos for giving da'wah and appearing on videos, I know that there are ulama who do hold that view. And this is Ibn Baz, this is from the justice of Ibn Baz. This is the way of an alim who understands these types of issues. As for the Hajawira, using videos, if it's from the sign of the Hizbis, the Ikhwanis and whatever, and they launch a war on this issue, then they spend time writing books and refutations against the people of the Sunnah who might hold one opinion or the other opinion. And then they will compile all the mistakes. And when you look, all these mistakes are issues in which the ulama, they make ijtihaad and they have their views and opinions. This is the way of the Haddadiyah. And this is why some of the ulama, some of the mashayikh of Yemen, when they have wrote refutations against al-Hajuri, they said that there are many, many usool which al-Hajuri has opposed. Just one of them on their own is enough to make him a mubtadi'. From them is the fact that he caused splitting amongst Ahlus-Sunnah. Just causing splitting in and of itself. That enough is sufficient to make him mubtadi'. Likewise, this issue here, enforcing an opinion, issues of ijtihaad, where scholars have different opinions, forcing that, making wala wal bara around that issue, this is enough to make him mubtadi'. So pay attention to that fact that this type of behavior is not acceptable amongst the people of the Sunnah. And in fact, you see that the Haddadiyah, there are many key issues that you find that when they want to come and cause turmoil amongst Ahlus-Sunnah, they will choose certain very carefully chosen topics and subject areas. From them is al-udhru bil-jahl, the excuse of ignorance. Do we excuse the ignorant person who knows nothing when he worships a grave, when he commits shirk? Is he given the excuse of ignorance? We don't say he's a mushrik because he's ignorant. Or do we say ignorance is not an excuse? He is a mushrik. Right? This is an issue in which the ulama, when you look at their statements, you see there's ikhtilaf, there's variation, different statements, different understandings. So what they will do is they will deliberately find these kind of ambiguous topics. Why? Because they can take some kalam from, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, take that kalam and then build a case against a Salafi who says, I believe that the Jahil who commits shirk, he has udhr, he has an excuse. Then they will say, you are a murji, you are this, whatever. Because the nature of this topic is it allows them to build a case from the kalam of some of the ulama. Do you understand? This is what they do. This is the way of the Haddadiyah. This is the way of the Hajawira as well. This is what they do. This is their field of activity. It's very dishonest. It's very dishonest. And, the aim, as we said, is for them to, make tahzeeb. They're upon hizbiyah. They want to defend the view of their leader. This is what is motivating them. So here the Shaykh gives two examples of differing in a matter of belief, a branch of a matter of belief and a matter of fiqh. He says, as for in the issue of the Aqidah, the Sahaba never disputed in al-Isra wal-Mi'raj that the Messenger went on a night journey and ascended to his Lord. They never differed. This is something that the whole Ummah has taken with acceptance. But they differed in a subsidiary issue in relation to the Isra wal-Mi'raj, which is, did the Messenger see his Lord? So Aisha radiallahu anha, she would refute anyone who claimed that the Messenger saw his Lord. She would say, من قال إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم رأى ربه تلك الليلة قد كذب. She would say, anyone who claims that the Messenger saw his Lord that night, then he has told a lie. من حدثك هذا فقد كذب. He told a lie. And Ibn Abbas, it is narrated from him that he said that the Messenger saw him. In one narration, he left it open. And in another narration, he qualified it and he said he saw him with his heart twice. So here he qualified in another statement. So the people of knowledge, they brought these two narrations together. They said that Aisha radiallahu anha denied the vision of the eyes, and Ibn Abbas affirmed the vision of the heart. So there's no variation in reality, it can be reconciled. As for the issue of fiqh, he says, an example here is when you go down into sujood. Do you go down on the hands first, or do you go down on the knees first? He says there are two statements of the people of knowledge. Some say hands first, some say knees first. He says, but we have not seen this group, attacking this group or blaming this group. And he says, I will give you an example here of an imam, a mujtahid, which is Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. That when you see him looking for evidence in an issue and he's discussing all of the evidences, he will mention both views, and then he will say, Asahhul qawlayn. Asahhul qawlayn. Look at the approach of this Imam al-Mujtahid. Meaning, he's informing you that there are other opinions, but the most correct opinion, in my view, is such a one. Now compare this attitude from the ulama, those who are mujtahid and imams and rooted in knowledge, from the way of these people, from the Haddadiyya and the Hajawira, who say there is only my opinion. There's only this way, only my opinion. This is what they say. Whereas this is not the way of the people of knowledge. They say asahhul qawlayn, or they say arjahul qawlayn, or they say aswabul qawlayn. The most correct, the most sound, the most, the most correct. This is what they say. And then he mentions his evidence. This is what they say. And sometimes even if a person feels strongly about his view, an alim might feel strongly about his view, that, for example, and that's the example that our brother, he gave yesterday, Abu Mu'adh Taqweem, he gave the example of Shaykh al-Albani holding certain views in certain issues and Shaykh Ibn Baz refuting those issues. Sometimes this refuting backward and forward is something that can take place. A person can hold his view and say this evidence is stronger, but this does not lead to the enmity and the hatred and whatever else that we see that some people they impose. So these are the two evidences given by the Shaykh to show this ikhtilaf in issues in which the evidences, they might be understood in different ways. Now, another type of differing is a differing in which there is no place for ijtihaad. Why? Because they are from the usool of the religion. They have been established by a text or ijma'. Here there's no room for ijtihaad and understanding whatever else. And he says that when we find a Salafi who is a Salafi, this first quality. Secondly, he is Salafi quh. He's a hardcore Salafi. Thirdly, he is mutadhalli'an bil ilm. He is someone who is, entrenched in knowledge, and he would not oppose his brothers. We see that if such a person, if he fell into a mistake, and then he was reminded and told, then he will certainly return back to the truth. Meaning that a Salafi can even fall into these types of mistakes. But when a person has these qualities, he is a hardcore Salafi, and he delves into knowledge, he seeks knowledge. When he's told by his brothers, he will return back to the straight path. He won't persist upon his way. It's a simple mistake that he made, and he will return back to the truth. This is from his qualities. Then the Shaykh says, as for taking the odd statements and the odd opinions and the odd views, then compiling them all together and then establishing foundations and principles upon those views. He says this is a way that no Salafi ever traverses upon this path. What does the Shaykh mean here? Let me give you an example. If you go to Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'rabi, this Ikhwani, he came along and then he began to discuss certain issues, like for example, Khabrul Wahid, Khabrul Ahad, the narration of a single individual, is it acceptable or not acceptable, right? And do we have to take the opinion of an alim when he refutes an individual? He took a collection of issues, then he began to write academically in these issues, then he began to take all of the obscure arguments, all of the odd arguments in history, the arguments of the Mu'tazila, the arguments of the Khawarij against Khabar al-Wahid being ilm. Right? So he brought these shubahat and he began to bring all of these different things. His intention was to lay foundations to undermine the refutations of the scholars, and from the people accepting the refutations of the scholars as, khabar and as nasiha to the ummah and so on and so forth. So what the Shaykh is indicating, that some people, you will see them, they will go to the gharib, which is odd, an odd statement of an alim. Some of them you will find them, they will find statements of Ibn Taymiyyah which are not even related to the issue at hand. And then they'll start compiling statements from the ulama of the past. And the intent is to lay down false principles, futile principles, because he wanted to, he intends evil for the people of the Sunnah. So he says, you will never, ever, ever find a Salafi falling into the likes of this. So understand the difference. A Salafi can make a mistake in the Usool. He can make a slip, he can make a mistake. If he's a genuine Salafi, he will return back from that mistake. And these are things that we find, and so we can accommodate them. We give nasiha. This is what the Shaykh is putting across. But as for when we see as a person laying down usul, finding strange, odd, ambiguous, generalized, unqualified statements from the ulama, or bringing odd, obscure arguments, then he's laying them down systematically, then his intent behind this, no Salafi will ever fall into the likes of this practice. And that's why we say clearly, that's why we can say that Adnan Arur is a mubtadi', because that's what he's doing, laying down usul by using the gharaib and the mafarid. Likewise al-Ma'ribi, al-Halabi, and all of these people who are falling into this second thing that the Shaykh is alluding here at this point. So then the Shaykh continues and he says, this is the first issue. Then he says, another issue is that the people of the Sunnah, when we have a mukhalafa, when there is an opposition that is clearly against the evidence, there's a text or there's consensus, then we do not accept that mistake no matter whom it comes from. Why? Because we look at things through the scales of the Sharia, of a text or ijma, consensus. We're not looking through the aql, we are looking through the scales of the Sharia. So anything which agrees with the Sharia, we accept it no matter whom it comes from. And anything which opposes the Sharia, we reject it no matter whom it comes from. And so, if the person who opposed the truth was from the people of desires, then they treat him in an appropriate way. They refute him, revile him, warn against him. Why? Because they want to make sure that they come in between that person and the rest of the ummah. In other words, they want to prevent that person's evil and his mistake and his misguidance from affecting the rest of the ummah. So they will refute him, warn against him, revile him, and shout from every direction against this person. Why? Because they want to prevent the evil. This is when they are strong, when they have strength, and they are the majority. As for in the time of weakness, what do? Then they refute the opposition, but they remain silent. وَيَسْكُتُونَ عَنِ الْمُخَالِفِ مُدَارَاتًا. And they remain silent about the opposer. Why? Out of the they're being tactful. They're being diplomatic and tactful, because this is what the situation requires. The Shaykh gives an example. He says, for example, let's say that the one who's making the opposition, he could be a minister of Islamic affairs in your country, in your region. He has a position, a status, a power. So it's no use you coming out and start refuting him by name, warning against him, because this is going to bring fitna upon you. And it's going to create a situation. So you refute the mistake and you say this mistake is a mistake. This is a mistake. This opposes the truth. Or it could be the Ra'isul Qudat. It could be the chief judge in your city. Or other such situations. So what the Shaykh is saying, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, is that if this person is a prominent person in your region and the strength lies with that person, then don't come out and start refuting him by name and this and whatever, and then because you're going to make problems for yourself because you are weak. And we discussed this in more detail in the lesson yesterday. So then the Shaykh continues and he says that another issue that I should point out is that there's a certain way that the people of the Sunnah use when they refute the oppositions. Ahlus-Sunnah are the people of i'tidal and adl. They are people of moderation and justice. As Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, hum a'rafu nas bil haqq wa hum arhamu nas bil khalq. They are the most knowledgeable of people of the truth and the most merciful of people with the creation. So the Shaykh says that if you look at the way of the people of the Sunnah, you will find that they take a way that is proportional to the opposition that took place and the way that the opposition took place. So pay attention to this. The Shaykh is saying here, they will take the same approach that is proportional to the mukhalafa, to the opposition which occurred, and to the way that the opposition occurred. What does this mean? The Shaykh elaborates. He says, there are two situations. For example, let's say we have a mukhalafa that takes place in a majlis. So now we are sitting in a majlis. You could be in a majlis in your house, in a gathering. We could be in a majlis like this, and an opposition occurs. A mistake is made. Someone makes a slip or a mistake is made. He says, here there are two situations. Number one is that the one who is going to refute it and explain it, he's present. And so therefore he explains what is correct with the dalil whilst using wisdom, whilst using hikmah. So he explains with the dalil to the people so that they don't leave and that mistake remains with them. Right? So he explains the truth, he brings the evidence, and so this is the first situation. The mukhalafa is present, person knows it's a mukhalafa, he explains it there and then with the evidence before the majlis ends and before the people walk away having a misconception in their mind. This is the first situation that can be found. The second situation that can be found is when someone narrates that an opposition has been made. So someone comes and he says, Ya akhi, so-and-so brother or so-and-so person, he made this mukhalafa. This is now a second situation where you are not directly present. Rather, it's coming through the route of narration, through naql. The Shaykh says that this person who's bringing you the narration, the naqil, either he is thiqah or he is not thiqah. Either he is someone who is known to be trustworthy, reliable, upright, or he is not reliable and upright. So now if he is not reliable and trustworthy and he brings this kalam, then his kalam is thrown away and not given any consideration. It's thrown away, the Shaykh says, yurma yulqa, thrown away and no consideration. However, if this person is a thiqah, someone who is trustworthy, reliable, he brings to you information about an opposition which has taken place from a person of the Sunnah, then the Shaykh says, فَلَا مَانِعْ أَنْ يَسْتَخْبِرْ يَسْتَزِيدْ عِلْمًا وَيَسْأَلَهُ. That a person can seek more information, examine, ask for more, ask him questions. Did you hear it yourself? Where did you hear it? Where was it from? And then he seeks to corroborate and affirm that yes, this is the case. So if this person says, well, someone else told me, it was narrated to me from someone else, then you have to ask the question, this person who narrated to you, is he trustworthy, is he reliable, is he thiqah? And if he is thiqah, then as long as he is thiqah, then fine, I will accept the narration. So the point being here that first of all, we have to make tathbeet. We have to affirm that this is indeed what was said, this is corroborated and established that this is indeed the case. So if this person said, well, someone told me, but I don't really know, is he trustworthy or reliable or whatever else, then, you say, well, okay, if that person is not known to you, say, well, this person, I don't know him, who is he? Who's given tazkiyah for him? And so if it's not established, if this person's trustworthiness is not established, then again the narration is left. Okay, now, if we establish the narration, so remember we're in a majlis now, and someone says, okay, so-and-so said so-and-so, and then we've gone through all the process, who told you this, did you hear it yourself, and you establish the isnad, and all of it is tathbeet and established. Then here a person can say, he can refute that mistake and correct that mistake and say, this is an error, this is what is correct, inform and convey to so-and-so person that he made a mistake. And then you can be nice about it as well. You can say, look, give this brother my salam, tell him I was asking, he says, وَلَا مَانِعْ أَن يَقُولْ بَلِّغْهُ مِنِّي سَلَامٌ وَمَا قَالَهُ خَطَأٌ. Inform him that I give him salam, but tell him that he made a mistake, and that he shouldn't spread it amongst the people. This is a mistake, this is an opposition, this is how it should be. And if the mistake was written in a book, so pay attention here, we said that the way Ahlus-Sunnah correct mistakes is in proportion to the way the mistake occurred. Here we are speaking of in a majlis, right? In a majlis. So if a narration comes, you explain in the majlis, and then you say, give that brother my salam, and go and inform him that this is a mistake, right? Now, what if, for example, the mistake now is in written form in a kitab, in a book? In a book. The Shaykh says, وَإِنْ كَانَتْ فِي كِتَابٍ وَانْتَشَرَ الْكِتَابِ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ رَدَّهَا بِمَا يَسْتَطِيعُ مِنْ تَسْجِيلٍ صَوْتِيٍّ أَوْ كِتَابٍ حَتَّى يَزِيلَ أَثَرَهُ. If it is in a book and spread and distributed, then a person can refute it by recording a statement and spreading that statement. Or he can write something. Why? Because now the aim is to limit the effect of that opposition which has spread amongst the people. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ فِي أَشْرِطَةٍ. If it is in a cassette, and the cassette is reliable, it's been recorded in a trustworthy way and transmitted in a trustworthy way, he says, وَجَبَ رَدُّهَا. It is necessary to refute that mistake. And whoever does not refute it from the people of knowledge to whom this mistake has reached, then they have resembled the people of the book, the Ahlul Kitab, in concealing the truth. Then the Shaykh brings the ayah, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ لَتُبَيِّنَنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ فَنَبَذُوهُ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ وَاشْتَرَوْا بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا فَبِئْسَ مَا يَشْتَرُونَ. Allah says about the people of the book, Allah took a mithaq, a covenant from them, those who were given the book, that you will explain the truth to the people and you will not conceal it. But a group of them, they threw it behind their backs and they sold it for a small price. What an evil it is what they have purchased. So it is necessary to refute so that the effect of the opposition can be counted. So look at, everything is in proportion. Mistake made in a gathering, if someone can correct it there and then, and the matter is finished. The matter is finished. Something is narrated to you about an opposition and you're able to explain it, you give your salam, tell that brother my salam, but tell him he made a mistake here and there, and the matter is done. Mistake made in a book which is spread, then you refute it in a proportional way. You write a cassette or a book, right? So everything is in proportion. Then he says, we shall summarize everything for you. First of all, we make thubut. We affirm that this is indeed what has been said. What is the way of making thubut? Either sihhatun naqal, the transmission is correct through naqal, or it is written with his own hand in a book, or it is recorded, a reliable recording. These three ways are the ways that we make tathbeet, that this mukhalafa is established from that individual. Now, once we've established that this is a mukhalafa, and it is not something in which ijtihaad is permissible, it's not a matter of ijtihaad, matters of the ahkam, matters of where there's no nas or ijma', and we know that's not the case, it then becomes wajib to refute that mukhalafa in proportion to the way that we mentioned, that the Shaykh mentioned in what has preceded. He says this methodology is something which has many evidences from the Quran, from the Sunnah. He will mention just a few of them. From the statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, who said, an innovation تحدث البدعة في المشرق أو المغرب ويحملها الرجل إلي فإذا انتهت إلي قمعتها بالسنة. An innovation arises in the east or the west, it becomes carried to me. When it comes to me, I destroy it with the sunnah. This is a proof of the obligation of refuting bid'ah and mukhalafa. Umar ibn al-Khattab said, إياكم وأهل الرأي أعداء السنن الذين أعيتهم أحاديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يحفظوها فقالوا بالرأي فضلوا وأضلوا. Beware of the people of opinion, they are the enemies of the Sunnah. They were unable to memorize and preserve the ahadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they spoke with opinion and they went astray and they led others astray. And so the Shaykh mentions here again that these things we spoke of before about the strange, obscure, unqualified, generalized, ambiguous statements that these people they bring together in order to make false principles.
Allah,
he says all of this.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So the Shaykh says that this approach of taking all of the obscure, the mafarid, the shu'ad, the obscure, those things which are odd, that this arises from a corrupt opinion, from ar-ra'i al-fasid. And he says, and then he says that this approach taken by the people of the Sunnah in preservation of the Sunnah, that this is something that we find the Messenger he mentioned in what is stated. And some scholars consider this hadith to be authentic. يحمل هذا العلم من كل خلف عدوله فينفون عنه تحريف الغالين وانتحال المبتلين وتأويل الجاهلين. This knowledge will be carried by the trustworthy ones of every generation. They will remove from it the distortion of those who go beyond bounds, and the fabrications of the liars, and the false interpretations of the ignorant. And likewise in the hadith that the Messenger said, سيكون في آخر أمتي أناس يحدثونكم ما لم تسمعوا أنتم ولا آباؤكم فإياكم وإياهم. That there will be in my ummah, at the end of my ummah, a people who will narrate to you what you have not heard, and nor your forefathers have heard. Beware of them, beware and beware of them. Reported by Muslim and others. The Shaykh has actually brought this collection of evidences from the Sunnah and from some of the Sahaba to show that this is an established way and a methodology of the people of the Sunnah, in that they refute the mistake. They refute the mistake no matter where the mistake comes from or who the mistake is from, but they have this methodology in the way that they refute the mistake. Then the Shaykh also brings the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil. A man is upon the deen of his friend, let him look at he whom he befriends. The Shaykh says a person should therefore yufattish an sahib sunnah. A person should seek and investigate and find out where is the person of the Sunnah. Who is the person of the Sunnah in his speech, in his action, in his belief, in his teaching, in his taqreer? Where is the person of the Sunnah? Why? Because he wants to follow. He wants to be from Ahlus-Sunnah. And he wants to be from Ahlus-Sunnah by way of this friend, of this person he's trying to seek out. And then the Shaykh brings a statement of Muhammad ibn Sirin, رحمه ta'ala, إن هذا العلم دين فانظروا عمن تأخذون دينكم. This deen, this ilm is your deen. So look at from whom you are taking your deen. So the Shaykh says, from all of these narrations that have been brought now, these narrations which indicate refuting the mistake, purifying the religion, we can summarize the following points. Number one, these texts, they are our proof. They are our proof for refuting the opposers in this time of ours. Because this is the way of the Sahaba. We find it mentioned in the Sunnah. Secondly, that this evidence, this is something that is well established in the Quran and the Sunnah and the Ijma' of the Ummah. What is the Shaykh leading to? He's saying that refutations and refuting the mukhalafa is a matter that is firmly established in the book and the Sunnah and the way of the people of Hadith. However, and this brings us to the end, the Shaykh says, however, in reality, there are certain people who are harmed and alarmed by the fact that there are knowledge-based refutations. Knowledge-based refutations. When they are based upon evidence from the Kitab and the Sunnah. So he says that there are different types of people. He says there are different reasons. What are the reasons why a person might feel disturbed and alarmed by way of these knowledge-based refutations? The Shaykh says there are two affairs. Number one is al-atifa غير المنضبطة التي استحكمت في العقل. The first reason is that the person has these emotions, sentiments which are not controlled, and they've taken root in his aql. And then these emotions become a veil and a barrier to him. So then he becomes confused and blind. And so he then starts believing that refuting a person who made a mistake is the same as making tabdi' of him. Pay attention to this. He wrongly thinks that when a person refutes another person, he's made tabdi' of him. This is not correct. Because the Shaykh says this is not correct. Rather, we find that the Salaf used to warn against others who used to be upon the Sunnah. They used to make tahdheer of people who were upon the Sunnah because they had some confusion, some mixture, some affairs that they were not pleased with, so they warned from them. This does not mean that they made tabdi' of them. So pay attention to that fact that sometimes we can refute a person of the Sunnah. We may warn against, for example, a particular book of his or even against him as a person because there are affairs of confusion which have arisen. None of this necessitates we have made tabdi' of him and expelled him from the Sunnah. So pay attention to that. The second reason why a person might be alarmed and disturbed by knowledge-based refutations is al-hizbiyyah. This hizbiyyah that a person has towards an individual makes him unpleased with the refutations. He says, these are the people who, there are many factions amongst them. He says, this group now, there are numerous factions amongst them. There are 3 or 4 factions amongst this group of people. These people, he says, first of all, the first group from these people is, first one is, he used to have connection with those who were refuting. Right? So for example, you have an alim, you have a person of the Sunnah, he's refuting the mukhalafa. So this individual used to have connection with those people. Then when he saw the refutations, he cut off from those people who were making the refutations. And he began to say, how can you refute those people? They are Salafi, you are Salafi. How can you refute them? And then he becomes confused. And so therefore, he cuts off from those people because he can't take the fact that they started refuting someone who made a mukhalafa. The Shaykh here, he gives an example. He says, look, Shaykh Sulaiman bin Sahman, rahimahullah ta'ala, they are from the mashayikh of the da'wah of Tawheed. He sent a person to go and give da'wah in Sham, or to Amman, which is in Sham, to give da'wah. And when he went to give da'wah, he actually fell into some of the madhahib of the Jahmiyyah. He fell into tajahhum. And then what they did is that these ulama, they began to write refutations against him. It was said his father wrote a refutation against him, against this man. It was said his uncle wrote a refutation against him. And they praised and made taqreed for the rad. So they're refuting their son or their nephew. He says, look at this. Their son is refuted and they are supporting, making taqreed of a rad against their son. So how can these people who are from this first group, they be unpleased with the refutation and then start cutting off from their brothers or from the scholars or from the students of knowledge because of this? This is not correct. This is the first group. He also gives another example. Ibn Qudama rahimahullah ta'ala, he refuted an alim from the Hanbalis, Ibn Aqil. Ibn Aqil was someone who began mixing with the Mu'tazila. He began to write about the sifat. He fell into something of the madhab of the Mu'tazila. And then what happened is that he was refuted and a majlis was held where the ulama were brought together and he was made to sign a tawbah. He was made to sign a repentance that this is an evil madhab. I refute it and I oppose it and I free myself from it. 100 years later, Ibn Qudama wrote a refutation against Ibn Aqil, who'd already made tawbah. And signed a tawbah. Why? Because this bid'ah and this evil had spread. So even though this person had died 100 years earlier and written his tawbah and spread it amongst the people, and there were hundreds of witnesses to his tawbah, Ibn Qudama wrote a book which has different titles, Tahrim al-Nadhar, ila kutub wa fi kutub ilm al-kalam. I forgot the title, but he wrote a book in which he's refuting the Ahlul Kalam, wa fihi al-Rad ala Ibn Aqil, within which is a refutation of Ibn Aqil. So he says, so the Shaykh continues and he says that this is the same way of the people who refute in our time. This is what they're upon, this is what they follow. And they want to put an end to the evil, and that's why they refute, and this is the way of the Salaf. The second group, now the second type of person, is the one who says, don't busy yourself in these rudud, don't spend time in refutations, leave all these refutations. The Shaykh says this is a general ambiguous statement that these people are using, and it can apply or it can come from only one of two men. The first one is a person of desires. He dislikes the fact that there are refutations against the people of bid'ah because they expose his bid'ah. They unveil him, they uncover him, they expose him. So therefore he hates these refutations. That's why he comes and he says, don't involve yourself in refutations. This is the first type of person. The second type of person is a mukhadhil. This is a person who deserts you and abandons you. This person then becomes a bridge for the innovators, whether he likes it or not. The Shaykh, حفظه ta'ala, is bringing these classifications to us because from experience, these mashayikh have witnessed individuals who have fell into these very same things. When they've experienced the fitna of al-Ma'rabi, and of al-Halabi, and of al-Maghrawi, and al-Ruhaili, and al-Hajuri. All these ta'sil that you are finding, it is based upon the experience of the mashayikh, of people around them who fall into these categories. So you have the mukhadhil, the one who will abandon, desert you. He won't like the rudud, he won't support you, won't stand up for the truth, despite claiming he's a person of the sunnah. He'll remain silent. The matter's crystal clear, and he's on the sidelines, on the fence. This is a mukhadhil. He will abandon you. He says the second type of a person is a mukhadhil. He becomes a bridge for the people of bid'ah. And rather what this person should say, he should say, Alhamdulillah, this person has made a refutation. This refutation is good. He's from our brothers. His refutation is beneficial. This refutation should be spread. This now is support for the truth and its people and the people who speak the truth. But the likes of these people, they make takhdhil, they abandon, they desert. And this is a sign of cowardice and weakness and the fact that they're not sticking and holding on to the usool of the manhaj of the Salaf in the way that they should. So this is another category of person, the mukhadhil, the one who abandons the people of the Sunnah when he should be supporting them. And finally, the Shaykh says here that rather what this person should say is support the people of the Sunnah when they refute. But then the Shaykh says, of course, when we see a person spending all his time in the books of refutation, then of course this is something that should be cautioned against. Rather, a person should be busy with knowledge. And as for refutations, we find that even the Imams who wrote refutations, it was because of a need of the time that they authored a refutation. It wasn't something that they engaged their entire lives in, that they did. Rather, they were engaged in ilm, in knowledge, memorization, Quran, hadith, athar, tafsir, fiqh, aqidah, tawheed. They were engrossed in those affairs, and as and when the situation required refutation, they made the refutation. So no doubt, this aspect of it is something which is correct, that when we see a person always just rudud, and there's no tahsilul ilm, this is something that is blameworthy. But these people, they make these ambiguous statements because they have agendas to follow. So that is the second type of person, the one who doesn't like rudud and wants the people to keep away from rudud. Right? That's the second person. The third person is the one who begins to make wala and bara around the one who is being refuted. How can you refute so-and-so? And then he begins to hate those who start refuting his mistakes. Then he starts showing enmity towards them, warning against them. And this in reality is something that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned. He said, "Man nasaba lin-nasi rajulan yuwali wa yu'adi fihi فَهُوَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا." Any person who comes, he sets up one individual, makes wala, bara, enmity, hatred around that one man. He is from those who are referred to in that ayah, from those who split their religion and turn into sects. This is the Hizbi. This is the Hajawira, the followers of al-Hajuri. They make one man, al-wala wal-bara, around one man. All of the ulama are either not with him or they are against him in refutation of his batil, his bid'ah, his false usool, and they will remain and they will make wala wal bara around this one individual. This is what is mentioned in the ayah, الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا, according to Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. So this, the Shaykh says, this is hizbiyah. This is what we find in our time, these people making wala wal bara around individual. And so that's the third type of person who will dislike rudud, dislike refutations. And the fourth person, the Shaykh says, is someone who, he announces his enmity and just dislikes those who refute. He mentions their names. He mentions expressions which are not good. And he says this person doesn't write the names. He won't write the names, but he mentions expressions to imply certain names. Do you understand? In other words, this fourth person is not going to come out openly and say, this alim, why is he refuting? Why is he doing this? Rather, he'll write general expressions and make hints and things like this. His intent is to dislike the rudud. But he won't be explicit. He'll just say, make hints and so on and so forth. He says, this is a miskeen maghrur. This person is just a miskeen. He's deceived. And this is the issue. Then the Shaykh says, هذا ما يسر الله سبحانه وتعالى على الجواب وسامحوني أطلت عليكم شيئا. The Shaykh says, this is what Allah has made easy, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the answer, and pardon me for increasing the length upon you a little. This is the end of the kalam of Shaykh Ubayd al-Jabiri, حفظه ta'ala. And with that we conclude our two lessons on how does a Sunni behave with a bid'i or a mukhalif from Ahlus-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And inshallah ta'ala, this is an extremely beneficial small article from Shaykh Ubayd. It will be translated, most of it's translated, and we'll try to put it out inshallah ta'ala.